Namaskar. This is my continuing video on Marxist feminism, and I said at the beginning there is no such thing as a feminist theory or feminism, it's feminisms. There are several feminist theories and there are dialogues and critiques within feminist theory. So we covered liberal feminism, and the prototype I said is Mary Wollstonecraft, and then we covered Marxist feminism, of which I said the most important is Heidi Hartman and her dual systems theory. Why is it called dual systems? Because she took Marx's base superstructure and split it in the middle, and she called this side the exploitation of labor, which leads in the superstructure to class society, and this side the special exploitation, the unpaid labor of women as a class, which leads to patriarchy. Today I'm going to talk about another Marxist feminist group. There are two of them, apart from Heidi Hartman. They're Ferguson and Nancy Folbre. Anne Ferguson and Nancy Folbre. They're also dual systems theories. But there's a difference between their theory and the theory propagated by Heidi Hartman. According to Heidi Hartman, the patriarchy is a cultural phenomenon. Why? Because remember what I said about Marx, that in the base are the production, modes of production and relations of production. In the superstructural level is culture, state, civil society, and everything else. So culture is a phenomena that's in the superstructural level for Marx. Now, Heidi Hartman makes patriarchy in the superstructural level, which is a byproduct of the fundamental control of women's special labor through domestic unpaid labor, which has no exchange value, and also all the labor surrounding reproduction, rearing of children, giving birth and then rearing and then feeding children, etc., etc. And so this is something that's very interesting for us. Is patriarchy a part of the base or part of the superstructure? And we'll come back to this later on. But let's see what Ferguson and Folbre said. Now, it's very interesting. They're also dual systems theorists, meaning they say that women's oppression in capitalism. See, neither Heidi Hartman nor Ferguson Folbre are interested in analyzing prior systems, which we'll do with another feminist theories, like tribal system, agricultural system, feudal system. They're all interested in analyzing capitalist system. Why? Because they don't have a separate model. They're just mimicking Marx's model, who mainly analyzes capitalism. Now, the difference between Heidi Hartman and Ferguson and Folbre is this, the most important difference. According to Heidi Hartman, capitalism is always oppressive towards women as a class. But according to Ferguson and Folbre, that's not true. It's not always oppressive to women as a class. Sometimes it is oppressive in some instances, and sometimes it is not. Especially capitalism did bring in some kind of liberation for middle-class women who are already empowered for their class position. But it's not in general emancipatory for women of all classes. How is it? What are the losses and what are the gains? Let's first talk about gains according to Ferguson and Folbre of women as a class and capitalism. What is capitalism? It's the first time that a large market spread, and the right to trade went out of the hand of feudal lords and monarch. As secularism broke out, we have the public-private division, and more than use value, now we have exchange value. We don't grow to consume, we grow to sell. Now, what are the gains? Women are no longer tied to the domestic sphere. Some women have access to the legal system, such as rights, property, childcare. Now, this is very important because it's only with the rise of the new bourgeois class, the middle class, that the whole concept of right, individual rights came into existence in Europe. During the feudal times, the nobility and the king had all the rights. There's no such thing as a middle class, the bourgeois class. Similarly with the women of this class, which is where Mary Wollstonecraft belonged to, which is why her liberal feminism failed the working class woman. Then there is some access to the market and wage labor for some women who have education and skills. Then women had to spend less time in fertility as fertility decreased. Why? Because now you have mechanization, so you have industrialization, so less hands are needed in industry than in farming. What are the losses? Women are in the market, but in low-paying jobs. And this is something Mary Wollstonecraft did not realize when she said that employment will liberate women. It will not liberate women, because with low wages one can hardly support oneself, live alone a family. Women have access to the legal system, but very few of them, and they don't have the cultural capital to even access the legal system. Some women have less access to birth control. Some women spend more time in their public labor, so they have to neglect their children. Women in healthcare services. Men are no longer lifelong providers, because that whole strong patriarchy is broken now, because they say women are part of the labor market, they can support themselves. But women are not self-sufficient economically, but men are no longer lifelong providers, which is why there is the whole question of alimony and so forth. Women are expected to be sexy and yet differ to men's desire. They're not equal, but they have to appear sexy in public, because now they're a large part of the public. And most women do not have much access to legal rights in case of sexual harassment, sexual assault, etc. So overall, capitalism did give middle class women who are slightly empowered, highly educated women something, but not all. This is Ferguson and Folbray's main critique. So they say that the relationship between capitalism and patriarchy is contradiction. In some places, capitalism broke the older feudal patriarchy, but in some places it did nothing, and in other places it reinforced patriarchy by putting women, especially in low-wage jobs, and making them provider for the family, yet not having enough education, skill, or wages. So this is the more or less the picture in Marxist feminism. And next we'll talk a little bit about socialist feminism, then we'll go into psychoanalytic feminism, which is very interesting. We'll do a little bit of psychoanalysis before that. Thank you. Namaskar.